I'm not quite sure how to start this journal entry. Well, start at the beginning. Well, the beginning since the last journal entry, I suppose. Well, I repaired my front porch. When I was repairing it, I saw a chest just inside the doorway that wasn't there before. Certainly not pre-explosion, and not from what I recall from past explosion. When I looked inside it, I found the pearl. I would show it to you, but, well, that's not possible at this precise moment, and well, we'll get to that. It was Perdition's pearl that I needed. We needed. From Kael. So I guess I didn't have to explain whatever Justice showed him after all. Knowing Kael, whatever Justice showed him must have been pretty convincing to him. I don't know what it was, because I never actually asked him. I figured it was, you know, private, and if he had wanted to ask questions about it, he would have asked me, but he didn't, so I didn't. So I can't tell you what Justice showed him. I can just say it was very convincing. So then I went to talk to Atera, and she told me that it was the right pearl, which I was pretty sure it was, but simply because it did seem different in some way from the other one that Kael had first given me. That wasn't right. So now I was told that what I needed to do in order to reach her, because I had to come to her to free her, which I knew from before that Damnatio had said that once inside I could open it, or that a mortal could open it, but not a god, so I knew I had to come there somehow. But, well, what happened was I needed one more piece. I needed another star. I didn't have one of those on hand, as it happened. Fortunately, Kael was very willing to give it to me in trade for the primordial pearl that he first gave to me. And so we exchanged things. Unfortunately, when I tried to... Oh, sorry, I'm forgetting something. Okay, right. Just a moment, I have to consult the paper. Right, sorry. So much has happened, I needed to consult my paper. I had to, on the altar that I already had communicating with Atera, I needed to add Perdition's soul, then the Nether Star, and Alair or Damnatio, in whichever personality, and of course it was Damnatio, had to be present. I wasn't sure if he'd be willing to be there, given what he'd said the other day, but he did say he didn't care at that point, so... I asked Atera if it would... his presence, if the ritual itself would harm him in any way, and she said it wouldn't. And it's a good thing I asked, because that's what he wondered when I asked him if he would be present. And I explained that I'd asked her, and she said it wouldn't hurt him. But then he mentioned that she can lie, which I had kind of speculated about before, but kind of dismissed as well, because the other two did not seem to directly lie, but apparently she can. So I took that under advisement, but he still agreed to come. So he waited until I said that it was time to come, because, well, in case it being near me when I'm communicating to Atera upsets him. We didn't want Berserker paying a visit. That would not be good. So I put Perdition's soul in the altar, and then I put the Nether Star, which I'd gotten from Kael, and then I used Atera's bow to shoot the altar 3 times. That was the next step, with Damnatio there. Not in front of the arrows, just, you know, beside the altar, in case you're wondering. And there was some lights and some explosions, and then it kind of all fizzled out. It didn't work. So I spoke to Atera again, and it seemed we needed a pure nether star. I guess it was like the fuel, maybe, for it? For the process, and, well, I didn't have any wither skulls, and I certainly did not have any more nether stars. Well, I had to shoot a wither with her bow in order to purify the wither somewhat, so when I collected the star from it, it would actually be powerful enough to do whatever it was necessary to do. So, I did that. It took a little while, though, because, well, like I said, I didn't have any wither skulls, but fortunately, while I was busy figuring out and doing what I needed to do in order to construct a wither processing booth, I based it on my father's design. I've never actually killed a wither myself, but I remember his booth, and so I made one that, well, it didn't look exactly like his, but it did the same function in pretty much the same shape. Thanks to my spirits, I was able to find just the right block, reinforced obsidian. Now, that did require a lot of obsidian, a lot of iron, a lot of coal, an alloy furnace, and a lot of power. It took a while to make enough blocks. And so I was going to go and hunt wither skeletons as well, but I decided that maybe we didn't really have the time to do that, because Astharus, well, I didn't know if he would actually directly attack me for doing what I was planning to do, like he never had before. He threatened to, and been all menacing and that sort of thing, but I didn't know what would happen. I wasn't worried about Kael attacking me, because of course he now had a vested interest in seeing Atera freed. And William was helping me too, although Kael didn't know that, and as far as I know, still doesn't know that. So, I asked Damnatio if he could possibly help out a little bit. I don't like asking him directly for things, because the gods, well, normally they're not allowed to do those sorts of things, and whenever he does give me something, it's breaking the rules. And so I think this is the first time I've ever directly asked him for anything, and he did give it to me. In fact, he gave me some soul sand as well. So, he gave me 6 skulls and soul sand, so all I had left to do was to construct the actual wither processing booth, which I did. And I processed the withers. Actually, I did 2, and I shot them with Atera's bow until they obviously weren't taking any more damage, but they were still alive. My spirits warned me that might happen. So then I went in close and I hit it with my sword, right here, until such time as the wither was no more, and I could pick up the purified, or more pure, nether star. And as I said, I did it twice, just in case. I figured Damnatio probably gave me 6 for a reason. So, then I went back to the temple room for Atera. Such a lovely room. I really do like it. And, well, then I set up the ritual again. I connected to Atera, put the innocent, the blood shard from an innocent villager on the runic altar. I put the spirit of good from the Gaia, or was that spirit of good? Anyway, I put the Gaia piece on the altar, and then I put Atera's focus on top. And I let her know I was about to begin. I let Damnatio know that I was going to need his presence as well. And she said she was ready. He said he was ready. So I asked him to come. I put Perdition's soul on the altar. I put the star on the altar. And I shot it again with the bow, Atera's bow, 3 times. There was more explosions, but this time they didn't stop. There was a light, which I'd seen before the first time, but this time it didn't go away. And then everything went dark for a moment. And when I opened my eyes, I was right here. I don't remember thunder, but I was right here. Ah, Spirit of Peace. Yes, that's what the Gaia part was called. Spirit of Peace, sorry. A spirit has just provided that missing piece of information. Alright. I was actually standing right there. I'm a little loath to stand right there because I was stuck there for a long time. Astharus was right up there, and he gave a long and very moving speech about how he was misunderstood, and basically I sucked because I didn't listen to him, and I didn't believe anything he said, and basically at some point I hope to have a chance to think more about that particular speech, because some of the things he said were true, some of them weren't true. From his perspective, perhaps they were, but I was going to correct him and let him know that where he was going was incorrect in his assumptions, but, well, Damnatio was here too, and he kind of shushed me and said to listen, so I did. I shut up and I listened. It seems Astharus is very... I hope his... Well, I'm getting ahead of the story, but he said that because he was so misunderstood and he had lost because I was here, that therefore he was going to become what I assumed he was. Again, he was incorrect in that. Partially correct, I should say, in his assumption. He said that I thought he was the god of evil, and therefore that's what he was going to become. I thought he did evil things, he used evil methods, and I knew he was the god of death and darkness, which is the opposite of light and good. But in a way, and I don't think I've ever really talked about this before, I mean, it's an easy to say, but this is why I believe in the shades of gray, because evil, I don't actually believe evil exists in the way that people think of when they say the word evil. I think people do evil things the same way they can do good things. Anything can be turned to what people call good or what people call evil. It's your intention. What are you intending to do with what you're doing? If you intend harm and mayhem and destruction and pain, then yes, that is not a good thing. But it has a part in the universe. In order for balance, both things have to exist. It's not like if you eradicate evil, everything will be wonderful, because then it's unbalanced, just as if you destroyed all the things that people considered good, and there was only what people consider evil left. It still wouldn't be balanced. And how would you measure evil, what people call evil, without what people call good to measure it against? So, yeah. I wouldn't, because I don't believe evil per se exists in that sense. I could be wrong, but this is what I believe. When Astharus said I believed he was evil, he was incorrect. I believe some of the things he did were evil, yes. But him? No. So, anyway. That's what I would have told him, only in a much shorter form, but I was told to hush, so I did. He accused me of never listening to him. Well, I've said many things to him about him being needed and necessary, and he did hear them, but he obviously didn't really understand what I was trying to explain, or listen, really, because he didn't listen just as much as he accuses me of not listening, so, yeah. Anyway, so I appeared here. He did his speech. Damnatio was, well, here, up in the air, I think. And then he left after declaring he was going to become evil. Since I don't believe evil exists, like I said, I could be wrong. Maybe he will become or create what I don't believe exists. I don't know. I hope I'm wrong. I hope. Well, you know me. I always hope. And you might be wondering, these pictures I've been drawing in the journal of this place. This is Atera's cage. That's where the ritual brought me, where I heard Astharus' speech. If Astharus built this, well, it is dark and foreboding, but it is also beautiful. And I hope he can hear me saying that, because it is. And because he can make beautiful things, I hope he can hear that. That he heard that I don't think he's evil. I don't believe that. Anyway, I think this represents light. I think this represents darkness, or order, and chaos, or whatever duality you wish to assign to them, good and evil. And then there's the center, there's the balance. And very appropriately, there is scales here. Simply amazing. Beautiful. And, of course, the person for whom this cage was built. She has a very tall door. A tall set of bars. Here. Ignore the bed, that wasn't there. I'll explain the bed in a little bit. And she was right there. In person. The god, the goddess of balance. I've been striving to free, because since the beginning I believed, as I understood more and more, I came to believe it more, that freeing her meant not just restoring balance to this world, but I hoped, I hoped so much, would restore balance to ours. The world that was torn in half. One half fighting and killing the other half, and the other half killing each other. So many have died. And now I know why. But I'll get to that. So at first I thought maybe I had to break the bars, but that wasn't it. It was pointed out there was a chest on the anvil. And I remember seeing that anvil when she first brought me, I guess, into her mind space so that I could speak to her before Astharus tightened up this cage. And here's her statues. The ones that we fought over so much. The one that I had to reach for Daniel in order to obtain. But that's not why I tried to reach Daniel. It was just one of the things I had to do. Anyway, you know all about that. I've written about that before. Her anvil. I saw that anvil in her mind. I wonder if, like the scales, perhaps it's one of her symbols? I don't know. But the chest. I don't know if this still will hurt me. I have a feeling it will, so I'm going to pick it up and put it... Yes, okay. I wasn't sure if I needed to hold it and read it, but I read this book first, and then I realized that I might have to hold this as well. So, to be honest, I didn't look around after I read it the first time, so she may have already exited this prison. but I was just so focused on getting done what I needed to do because she'd been in there so long. Well, I picked up the sword and was going, ow, 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 while I read. And I'm gonna write down the text that was in that book. It's called The Last Key. It's got my signature on it now because I thought, well, I might need to do that. Oh, I didn't sign it. I thought I had. I thought I might have to do that as part of the... Anyway, I wasn't leaving anything to chance. Atera, alongside the powers sculptured through the will designed by the primal, alongside the never-by-me questioned value of the Elder's creations, alongside Alair's light, alongside Astharus' darkness, alongside the uncountable amount of drops of sorrow shed, mourning the souls of the billions, all lost in the war. Atera, my goddess, alongside my will, my tears, my sweat, my energy, my soul, I release you. And then I signed it, or I thought I had. It's... well, perhaps I did, and perhaps now she's free. It became unsigned, I don't know. The point is, as I thought when I did that, I actually expected to die. Especially when I read the part, my energy and my soul. I thought I was the last key, just like I was the key to open the way for Astharus to get here through the portal, so that he could destroy her then. But he had to come through that way in order to do it, I guess. It let him come here with his powers, whereas I guess coming here any other way meant he didn't. So yeah, I expected to join Daniel. But I didn't. And that's when I realized that Atera was not in there anymore. She was here, and she'd started to talk to Damnatio. So needless to say, I was ecstatic and shocked and stunned, because this is what I've been working for up to this point, and I didn't think I'd be here after. But I was, and now I had to figure out what to do. So I decided that, well, hi Justice, I'm getting to your part of the story. I thought I should, they were talking here, so I went over here because I didn't want to, well, interrupt. Because while Damnatio wasn't her Alair, he was part of her Alair. And I thought she was going to try to recover him, maybe like I did Daniel, although for different reasons, obviously. But, or... I think this is when Justice arrived. I think. It was around that time, anyway. I thought she would, if she couldn't reach him, that, well, I thought that I was going to be watching the demise of a god. But that didn't happen. That didn't happen at all. Because Atera had come up with another solution. She didn't need me to do it. And maybe she'd thought of this all along, or maybe my saying that there had to be another way prompted her to think. To be honest, it doesn't really matter whether or not I helped. I hope I did. But if she'd already thought of it and I didn't, well, that's fine too. All that matters is that there was another way. Because it seems, and this is stuff I learned later, but it's appropriate to talk about it now, it seems that the Elder God, who, as I learned, was beyond even the entities, although he was still affected by the entity time, so that's why he died in old age. But the hierarchy was Elder God, entities, Atera, Astharus, Alair, and then way down at the bottom here, us humans, who are also created by him, the Elder God. Apparently we were his favorite creation, beloved creation. To say the least, I was a little surprised to find out where we came from. I mean, I knew we came from somewhere, but to know exactly is, well, that's a different thing. Anyway, the Elder God had also planned and basically put booby traps in Alair in case Astharus, well, started doing what he did do. And those booby traps were Damnatio and Berserker. So they had some kind of separate existence. And that's why Atera was able to offer, with the entity's help, what she did. To separate Damnatio, because he was the bridge between Alair and Berserker. If he was removed from Alair, then there was no danger of Berserker being released. And Alair could continue to exist. And Damnatio could continue to exist. But not, he would be turned into a mortal, but only for a time. Then he would take up the position as Atera's, how did she put it? I can't remember exactly what she said. I think I was still in too much shock at the time. Something like an agent of balance, because he would be her Archangel, and she said she needed him because to prevent the same kind of thing happening again, where she became encaged by Astharus. And that's, so it turns out that Damnatio was necessary as well, and not just as a part of Alair, but in his own right. And that, I was so happy to hear that, because, well, in this place, I would say that aside from my brother, the only person that I really cared a lot about in a personal sense was him. And he was a god. I mean, you wouldn't think that you... I keep telling myself that. He's a god. You don't need to be worried about him, but, well, I was. And I can't help that. I mean, I did care about Richard and rescuing him, and I did care about what happened to Kael, but not in the same way, if you understand. Anyway, the point is, he will be fine. He has to go through some sort of process. He had to go away with, well, I don't say with Alair, because they were in the same body. But they had to go away for a bit to separate, and apparently it would be an unpleasant thing to watch, so I was just as happy to not witness that particular thing. And then I talked to Atera for a time, and I had some upsetting things said to me, which I still have to think about and process properly, and still, I'm not going to think about it too deeply because I will get upset. But she did lie to me. I had told Damnatio that as far as I knew she hadn't lied to me before. But I was wrong. She had lied to me. When I had asked her if Daniel could be reclaimed from Ian, or that he could be saved, I know, not the reclaiming from Ian part, the saving part, that she lied because she knew that if I weren't the sacrifice to open the portal, then in order to shut it down, Daniel would have to be sacrificed. The fact that it was used to provide me with the bow, I don't know if she knew it at that time or not, that they were going to do that. But I understand, if I understand correctly, that in order to shut the portal down, you couldn't just flick an off switch. Daniel was the off switch. And if it couldn't be turned all the way on with me, it had to be turned off with him. But what she didn't understand, she's a goddess, but she didn't understand. And maybe I wouldn't have then too. Maybe I'm wrong. But if I had known that he had to be sacrificed, but that his soul would be out of Astharus' reach, and in a place, well, I'll describe a little bit more about that in a moment. But at the time, I thought in a place where our souls are supposed to go when we die, then at least he was safe, and that he was himself. And she did assure me that he was Daniel when he died. There was no Ian left. So he was Daniel. And because of that, I would have still done everything I had. But I wish she'd had trusted me enough to tell me the truth and not lie to me. I hope she's listening to this. Well, she's probably busy talking to Alair right now, so probably not listening to me, come to think of it. But I hope she comes to understand. Yeah. I think I would have been upset. I wouldn't have been happy. But a little time, and time to think. Because even though I don't know exactly where he is, and I've been told now that he's in a place that's not the same as where souls normally go, to the core of me, I do not believe that a good soul, if he was Daniel, as I was told, he's Daniel as when he died, there was no evil, what people call evil, but I call corruption, whatever you want to call it. The part that was Ian was gone, which means he was Daniel. I cannot believe a good soul would go to a bad place. What would be the point? But they said he went to a different place than souls normally go. And I still don't know exactly what that means. Atera and Alair, neither of them knew exactly what that meant. I suspect the entities perhaps might, or at least suspect, but, well, they don't talk to people directly, so all I can do is continue to hope that my concept of the universe is in some way correct, and that a good person like Daniel would not be put in a horrible place. Yeah. Okay, anyway. Let's not get too sidetracked, shall we? They answered a lot of questions when Alair came back. It was while I was still upset, I think, that Alair did come back, and they were talking over there, and I was going to kind of, sneak off into a corner, because I figured they'd want to talk, and they said no, that I should ask questions if I had them. And so I learned a lot. How the war in my world came about, because I was right. This place was connected. It was connected to the war. It was connected. to the deaths of so many people, the deaths of my mother and father, and Daniel's first death. It seems strange to say that, but yeah. Well, I don't want to write down every single thing of it because, well, it would just take too long. I'm going to summarize what happened, or what I was told. This place, which the gods, they called Renascintis. I never knew its name before. This world, the dimensions connected to this world. Damnatio had told me that they were not part of my world, of the dimensions connected to my world. In his words, it wasn't even branches of the same tree, it was in a completely different forest. And that's all he could tell me, and I couldn't tell anybody else that he told me that much. So that was my understanding at that point, and I had been told that this place had been created by them. I didn't think that it meant that the things within it were any less real, but apparently I was wrong on that. The villagers, they don't have souls. They were really like programs. And I guess that's why they didn't really talk. And the fact that Richard spoke after a certain point was because Justice possessed him. I was talking to Justice, who was pretending to be Richard. But they can speak through things, like, because Richard, well, Justice, told me that they could, but that those people normally, well, Damnatio told me they normally suffered a messy demise, because it was just too much power, but Richard did not. Maybe that's because he didn't... Is that what happened when he left? Basically, when Justice finally stopped possessing him, he just disintegrated. Because he was a program, and he wasn't ever a live person in the beginning. Anyway, I'm getting a little out of order here. Actually, I just got a message from my spirits. They said to try to look up in Atera's cage. Well, I'm trying. Well, I see cobwebs. How high up am I supposed to look? Lots of cobwebs. Oh. And Gory thinks I can actually break the bars now that the seal is broken, and that could be true, so let's try it. I have to remember where I was. I was talking about how the war came to be. Oh. I can. Oh, good. I still have some torches. Which is good, because I cannot see in the dark. Oh. Interesting. I know they said look up, but cobwebs. I wonder if that's her blood. It might be. Do gods bleed? Yes, they do. Well, Damnatio certainly did, so Alair did. Alright. Oh. This is how bright I normally like to see things. So, glad that it's a little easier to see now. It does... Oop, did I get stuck on a cobweb? It does look very cool in here. It does. if in a creepy, spidery kind of way. I'm not quite sure if there's something I'm supposed to see here in particular, or just to show it off. Because, yeah, if Astharus wanted it to be beautiful and creepy, I think he succeeded. Because with all these webs, there must be spiders around here somewhere. Or were. Wow. This is such an enormous place. I mean, I know he's a god and all, but it blows my mind. How long would it take to build something like this? I mean, geez, it took me hours just to build a tiny little hallway. You know, that my little thing that got blown up by Damnatio. Wow. Yeah. Oops. It is a huge, huge building. And gorgeous. And a creepy cell. Even if it's a beautiful one. And it was dark and, well, it's not so dark now. Anyway. Cool. Thank you for suggesting I look in there. I would have missed that. Right. Actually, that was a very good distraction because I was getting a little emotional. So, where was I in my story? Right. Alair was explaining the purpose of this world. Well, that's how it started. I asked him what the purpose of this world was and if it had been completed with freeing of Atera. And the answer to that, the short answer is yes, it was. In Renascintis, this might be all that's left of it by now. They said it was coming apart at the end before they took their leave. So, there may not be anything left of anything where I just was, but this. And I imagine very soon this will be gone as well. Because its purpose is completed. But let me get back to what Alair told me. That Astharus, well, as we know, decided he needed and wanted control and power, and he wanted things to be the way he thought they should be. Which, well, I won't go into the psychology aspects of it, because maybe it doesn't apply to gods, I don't know. But I will say he did remind me of some children that I've known. And I know I've never actually told you all in this journal how old I am. But you could do the math. I'm 6 years older than Daniel. And he was 24, 25 when he died. And the war was 4 years long, so at the time that I was last remembering it. So, yeah. I mean, I'm not ancient. 34, 35. I don't even know if I'd call myself that age now. I feel older somehow, but he did strike me as the way a neglected child would feel, Astharus. Obviously in a god form and in having godly powers. But I mean, I didn't know him that well. That's just what I saw. And it's not to say I dismissed his feelings and said, oh, that doesn't matter because he's acting childlike. No, it did matter. It did matter a lot. It's just I perhaps looked at it differently than other people might. Anyway. He wanted things his way. He wanted the power. And Alair and Atera they loved each other, and they were involved and missed what was going on with Astharus. And that's how Atera ended up in a cage, because they missed his dark side growing in power until the point that he was able to construct this place, and construct it out of such materials and such rituals as a god could not affect it, because he planned to encage in Terra, leave Alair out, because he knew Alair would slowly go insane without her, which he did. But if it had been penetrable by a god, then Alair would have just broken her out. But because it wasn't penetrable by a god, that meant, well, Astharus couldn't open it either, even if he had decided to. At least that's my understanding. It had to be done by a mortal. But, of course, he never did. I never did convince him to open it. But in his search for power, after he caged Atera, there was rules that the Elder Gods set up that governed what they could do, and they're very important rules, VIP rules, God rules, and one of those was they could not physically interfere with humans. So Astharus didn't want everybody dead. He just wanted the people that wouldn't follow him dead, which I knew. I just didn't think there were that many, behaving as he was, that would want to follow him. I guess he interpreted that as me saying that he was being evil, but no, I didn't want to tell him. I looked at it as more like a child having a very godlike temper tantrum, that nobody wants to be around that person because, well, he's unpredictable and likely to do things and break things, and you know, you just sort of like go off to your room and cool off. But you can't say those sorts of things to a god that's already, well, not happy. Anyway, he decided to the answer to his problem was to mind control the half of the population that people would call on the evil side of things. Like I've already explained, I don't really believe evil per se is a thing. It's what you do. But anyway, those people of his bent, he mind controlled them basically. I don't know how that works, because I'm still not quite sure. I meant to ask this. This is one of the things I actually forgot to ask, but I was distracted with many things, and it really wasn't that important in the range of things. But Alair didn't know what else to do. He couldn't think of what else to do, so he descended to his brother's level, and he did the same thing, but to the other side, the good side, if you will. I mean, I don't know how mind control by a god works. Maybe you wouldn't even know it was happening. I would think you would notice. And that's why I wonder, because of what I found out later, if I was not affected by either side. I don't know. Maybe I'll get a chance to ask. I think I will. But yes, because Justice, of course, is, well, even if Justice is listening to me, I know you can't answer directly, so, well. Anyway, I keep standing here because this is where I was standing when they were talking over there, answering my questions. And, okay, so Alair, so you had the two sides of the war. And that's when the war happened, because the brothers were basically using the people to fight. And there was millions of people dying on either side. My family, other people's families, so much death. And that shocked me, that we were basically being used as pawns in an argument between two gods. And Alair obviously was not... Did he say that he was ashamed? I can't remember, but that's the impression I got. He regretted deeply that he hadn't found another way, that he had done what he did, but he may have already been affected by the lack of Atera, so he may not have been thinking clearly at that point, even that early. And so this place, which originally was just a getaway for the gods, Alair and Astharus, they decided to make it a place where they didn't want to see all of humanity wiped out, which is what was going to happen if they continued. So together they agreed that they would bring some people here, people who had just died before they were unreachable. They would bring them here, to this place, to Renascintis, although I can't show you it anymore. And it would be decided there. If Atera was freed, although he gave his speech when I arrived here, so perhaps the winning condition was me, or someone arriving here. However. So, Astharus lost, Alair won, some might say. But in a way, I think we might have all lost, because Astharus is still perhaps even worse than he was. Because now, I wish I could talk to him. I wish I could reach him like I did my brother. But he's a god, and I don't have the bond with him that I had with my brother. But anyway, let's not get too distracted. So, needless to say, I was rather upset to find out that we were basically brought here is, well, first, that humanity was being used as pawns, and secondly, that we were, well, basically chess pieces, with wills and minds of our own, granted, but I mean, I knew there was a reason we were brought here. I guess just being slapped in the face with it, with the reality of it, was a bit more than I expected. But I tried to set that aside because, well, it's done, isn't it? And continue. So yes, that's why the purpose is done, is because I reached here, I freed Atera. Astharus, in his view, lost. And the world that I tried to treat as real, even when I knew that it had been constructed fairly recently by the gods, was even less real than I had realized. But to be quite honest, even knowing that, I can't imagine that I would have behaved very much differently. Maybe I would have, but my instinct is to say that I would have done pretty much the same as what I had. Probably the only thing that would have been easier was sacrifice in order to get the innocent blood shard, because that's what was the difficult part, was believing that I was killing a person. And of course, actually no. It was the act that mattered. It was the intent. That's what I said, and that's the truth. So, no, it wouldn't have made any difference if I'd known. Because the point was still there, still the reason. It may have been easier to do it, but it still wouldn't have changed what it was. So then I asked a number of questions, but the most important among those is, what was going to happen to the people that they brought here? I didn't mean me. Like I said, I had fully expected to die, to be, well, when I read that book, I thought that was it. When I finished that book and pressed the signed it, I I fully expected that, and it didn't. So, so I asked what happened to Kael if he had been promised and told that he was integral to the balance of our world, and if that was true, and I had no reason to believe she had lied to me about that. Because just because she had to lie once didn't mean everything she says is a lie, any more than if I am forced to lie, like say by saying that the focus of Atera I found mining, doesn't mean that everything I said is a lie. So I grant her the same I would ask other people to grant me. So she... Okay, I just lost my train of thought. It's been an exhausting day. Where was I? Oh, this is terrible. How could I possibly lose my train of thought? This is... I don't suppose you can be of some help here. Could you, Justice? Please? No? Okay. Okay, so I talked about the war and the real reason... Oh, yes! I asked what would happen with Kael. That's where I was. And I figured he'd be pretty ticked, because he was promised to be returned to his position in return for giving me Perdition's primordial pearl. And, well, everything that we had in our world basically is gone because, well, we died, right? So if we were returned in any fashion, I wouldn't think it would be as ourselves. I would expect it would be as a new life. I really don't know how would work, but Atera said she would speak to him and that would be his choice. So I think the power that he had is gone. Family, friends, that's all gone. But he had no problem building up power here again. I have no trouble imagining him doing just fine if he chooses to go back, but he's probably going to be pretty ticked. And I did ask, would the people who chose to return, would they remember? And the answer is, well, if they want to remember. If they want to forget, they can do that too. So Kael could very well be, even as I speak now, back on our world in some form, with his memory intact and pissed more than he was before. Yeah. Well, or he might have chosen forgetfulness, or... I mean, because I don't know his background, other than him saying that people had always betrayed him. And that he feels that I had too, by the way, because I actually hit him. I apologized. I don't know if he thinks about things as much as I do. I think it's called self-reflection. I don't know if he's capable of doing that, so he may never, ever forgive me. That may be a bridge that is forever burnt. And you might wonder, Journal, why I'm talking as if I'm going back there. Well, I explained to them, because they said that I deserved a reward, a favor from the entities, which is a very valuable reward. I mean, it's not something you get every day for what I'd done. And I was... Well, like I said, I thought I was going to be dead, so I didn't think rewards or anything of the kind were even an option, and I never wanted a reward. My reward was hopefully helping the world that I came from. And this one, although now I know that it's, well, gone, so that is... At the time, that was what my reward was. And that's all I had ever wanted. So when they said that I could have a reward, I didn't know what to ask for. So I asked Alair and I asked Atera what they would want. to see me do. And they said some very nice things about me. I don't remember exactly. I'm sure once I think about it, they'll come to mind again. But to the effect that, you know, that I was an unusual person, and was it at this point that I said this? I can't remember. I'll say that it was. I might be misremembering, but at one point in the conversation, and this might have been the point because, or it might have been before. Anyway, I pointed out that, because they were talking about Alair and had mentioned that people were brought, he brought some and Astharus brought the others, and I guess he thought Atera had brought me, because when I said, well, you know, that I wasn't brought by anybody, and that's when I was asking my questions, yes. I asked who brought me, because I would really like to know specifically who it was, and because it wasn't any of you guys, and he didn't know that. He thought it was Atera. And it was Justice. And when I asked why Justice brought me, their only answer was, well, it turned out to be a good idea, wasn't it? And I guess it was, given the results. That doesn't really answer why, however, but maybe they didn't really know. I mean, I can't really think of anything I did in my life that would have, except failing to protect my family, and they did tell me there was nothing I could have done to protect them, that it wasn't my fault. I've told myself that. It doesn't help. But doing what I did here and knowing I've helped my world does help. Make amends in my heart for failing. Even if everybody says it wasn't my fault, it doesn't matter that it still feels like my fault. Anyway, so that's why I still don't understand why Justice chose me. I mean, yes, apparently it was the right choice, but I don't know why I was the right choice. And you're not going to tell me, are you? No. No words. I'm not in it. Well, I was the right choice. I still don't know why. But when I asked them what they wanted for me, Alair said that he wanted me to prosper, basically, and Atera said that she would like to see me continue to be her seer, to return to my world and continue to be her seer and help the world heal. And that seemed, to be honest, there's a part of me that still doesn't want to go back, because there's a lot of pain there for me. And I'm getting tearful just thinking about it. So it's not going to be easy to go back. But I said I would, because she wanted me to go back, and I would still be her seer. Part of me still, I could have chosen to go where Daniel went. I was told that I could. And part of me wanted to take that choice. But I didn't. So it's... just give me a moment, journal here. It's not going to be easy to go back. But that's what I decided I would do. At least that's by my choice. I was brought here without my choice. This is my choice. And my spirit suggested, or one of my spirits suggested, that I ask, that since I didn't know what to ask of the entities, that perhaps I should ask them for help rebuilding. And they don't directly act, but I thought that, well, that's as good a thing as any to ask for. And so I did. And they said, Atera said that they would help me as much as they can, given that they don't directly act. So I don't know what form the help will take, but at least there's that. And I will remember everything that happened here. They said I could forget, but that seemed a waste to me. Not because I want to sit here and dwell on, oh, you know, I did this. No, I don't want. I did what I needed to do. I didn't do it because I want somebody to say, oh, you did a fabulous thing and here's a statue. No. That's not why I did it, and I don't want a statue. I thought I'd be gone. And in a way, I think that's why thinking about giving up the chance to not be here anymore, to be with Daniel, I think that's why it's so hard for me to talk about that, because that's part of what I wanted. It was actually part of the reason I was doing this. I just wanted to make amends before I went to wherever Daniel went. I didn't know I thought that really was what was going to happen. So no, I didn't actually want or expect any reward. I guess in a way I didn't really pick a reward, did I? I picked something that I'm not so sure it's going to be easy. I know it's not going to be easy to do, and I'm still not sure I really want to do, but I'm sure I'll manage. That's me. Get offered a reward and not pick the thing that I would really like to have chosen. I'm just as broken as anybody else, apparently. Anyway. I think that's about it, journal. So I guess I probably will be starting a new journal when I return to my world. I have no idea what I'll find when I get there. How much is really left. Because while I was here doing what I needed to do, I have to assume the people on my world were still there and they were still fighting. And there were so many that were dead. So much of the world was in ruins when I left. Unwittingly, unknowingly, but it was... I didn't choose to leave, but at the time that I remember. And I can't imagine it had gotten any better. So while the two sides may not be fighting anymore, not for the gods' reasons, there's still going to be people who will continue to want to fight because that's what they've gotten used to. Then there's the people that always like to fight, whether or not there's a reason to do it. And my question is there going to be anything left to fight over? How much is going to need to be rebuilt? How many people are left? I don't know. But I guess I'm going to find out. Well, I think that's about it. Good night.